All right, good morning everyone and welcome to our event on adapting to the AML reforms and also modernising legal practices. We are excited to hold this event for you today and we know that you're going to find it very informative, well hopefully, but I've seen the deck so I know that that's going to be the case. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sarah Wheaton and I am an account manager at Kane Matherick Tech, or KMT for short, and I'll be your MC for today's event. I'm excited to facilitate the discussions today, focused all on the reforms to the Australian Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorism Financing Act and how particularly it will affect the legal sector. So today's session is designed for you and to give you some valuable insights as well as some practical steps that you can take to address these significant changes to the Act. I'm now going to introduce our special guest panellists. First, to my left, is that working okay? Yeah. To my left, we have, well actually, I'm going to reorder it because I do want to go left to right. So joining us, we've got Kelly Wright, our Chief Relationship Officer at Verlata. So Kelly manages relationships with law firms across Australia and New Zealand. And with over a decade of experience in the legal sector, including AML compliance, Kelly understands the industry's challenges and also the solutions. She excels at connecting firms with technology to ensure compliance and operational efficiency. I also have Scott Matherick here. So Scott Matherick is the CTO of Kane Matherick Tech. Scott is the co-founder of KMT, and also you might know that we are a Microsoft solutions partner. With over 20 years of experience working with various integrators, Scott has gained extensive real-world experience in enhancing cybersecurity for organisations across multiple industries. And then further along, we'll have Aidan Clifford, who is our Microsoft manager, or let me actually put that correctly. He's the Microsoft Business Manager Team Lead at Pax8. So they are a real partner to KMT. And Aidan has a seasoned and professional experience across strategic marketing, project management, product development and campaign optimization. Aidan has driven business growth and innovation, enhancing Pax8's market presence and customer engagement. So as you can see, they come with a world of knowledge and it's very exciting for me to be able to introduce them to you. And I'm going to pass over first to Kelly. Yeah, turn yourself on.
Okay, how's that? Is that volume okay? I'm a bit of a loudspeaker, so that might, hopefully everyone can hear me. Yep, cool, thumbs up. Awesome, so great to be here today and a massive thanks to KMT for hosting the event. I'm looking forward to talking to you about AML, woohoo, very exciting topic, but also some practical implementation steps around it. A little bit about me first. Thank you also, Sarah, that was really nice and maybe slightly inflated, but very nice. I've worked in the legal industry for 15 years. 8 years of that has been managing and working in law firms, and the remaining 7 have been in legal tech. For those that can't tell, I'm 24 weeks pregnant, and this is how many children I currently have. And until I had to buy this pair of pants, that's how many pairs of pants fit me in my wardrobe. So it's been something I've been adapting to over the last few weeks. This number on the screen is the number of firms that I actually have spoken to since this event was created that didn't actually know what AML was, what it stood for, and what was coming. So I thought that was quite a shocking number that I wanted to share. Obviously, you're all here today, so I think that that's a really good sign that you're not in that category. But just to give you an idea of, I suppose, we're on a really big spectrum here around awareness. Verlata Consulting is a business, so we help law firms and legal teams implement software that will streamline their processes. We partner with I guess what we've deemed to be best of breed solutions in the legal market, so ActionSet for practice management, Net Documents for document management, a few peripheral products, and also we work a lot with the 365 tech stack. We now also partner with a few AML providers, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Verlata is a business. 11 years we've been around. We have worked with globally about 550 clients. We have 75 staff. We've had crazy growth in the last couple of years, which sounds, really sexy, but it's also really hard. But what I like to share is that 70% of those team members have worked in law firms before, and I deem that I like to label that as our secret sauce. It helps us understand what your requirements are. We're in 6 countries. I won't go through them all, but here's some flags to identify. What's important to note is that 2 of those countries we've worked directly with clients around the rolling out their AML in their businesses. Those 2 countries are New Zealand and the UK. Disclaimer, everybody loves a disclaimer, right? I'm not an AML expert, I'm not certified, I'm not a certified AML advisor, but I do have a team that's wrapped around me that, like I said, has worked with a lot of clients around AML, so I'm hoping that I can share some valuable insights with you today. Speaking of, I guess, today in the presentation, I think as I've been sponging all of this AML information recently, I have really realised that this is a journey. This is not something you're going to be able to fix and solve and have a solution for next month, even 2026. This is going to be an evolving journey for you, and it's going to, 1,000 steps, 1,000 miles begins with 1 step. And that 1 step is you guys being here today, so I think that that's really great. For me, a goal of the presentation is to help you feel less overwhelmed. So if you leave here today and you feel less overwhelmed about what's coming, then that's a win for me. To do that, I want to cover off on some key dates, some quick definitions, but I do want to spend some time on kind of what you need to know now, what we think you should be knowing and addressing now, and also talk about software. And you will have some homework to do that I would hope that you will do. What's a presentation without telling a story at the beginning? We can learn from our neighbours. So our experience in working with New Zealand clients is that New Zealand was not prepared for AML in law firms when it hit. So what we know is that history can repeat itself, but if we get on top of that now, then that won't be the case over here. So we can learn some lessons from the neighbours. Oh, that's not meant to happen. There we go. Cool. All right, so it's 2018, AML's mandated. Oh. How do I pause it? It's 2018, AML's mandated in New Zealand. Firms are completely unprepared, and when I said to the team, how would you describe it? They said 3 words, but I will only use 2. They said utter chaos. So it is chaos. People are not prepared. And what happens is that firms have major impact, because they're not prepared. So they see things like immediate change in their operations. They need to make immediate changes to their processes and their operations. Immediate changes in operations and processes, right? But we also are seeing an increase in New Zealand around their resourcing requirements. This is not something that people were expecting. So all of a sudden, AML comes in, they have to change, and they've got, oh my gosh, I've got to hire staff, I've got these new roles, I didn't know about this. We've got a lack of understanding by staff around what's required for AML. That's leading to tension between client, it's really tension between processes and also the staff. Why do I need to do this now? I just need to start work on the file. So, there was major frustration there. Oh dear.
Please go back one. Yeah, see if this stays here.
No, that's fine. What I also really want to highlight, though, what we saw in New Zealand was the changes to the client onboarding process. So that really had to change, and it had to change drastically and dramatically and quite quickly because people weren't prepared. So you're seeing, clients being onboarded in a much lower, maybe drawn out way. You're seeing clients being frustrated about that. You're seeing the engagement with clients being different. Now, all of a sudden, I need to provide you with this information. Why do I need to give you my ID? Why do I need to give you my passport? So we had a lot of confusion around clients and frustrations. I think it's really important to highlight too that there were costs to the firm that the firms weren't anticipating. They hadn't budgeted for them. So we had costs to firms around impact on their revenue, when they could actually start doing work on files. So the path to revenue became delayed. You can't start working on this file until I do these checks, which means you can't record time, which means you can't bill, which means you're not going to get paid quicker. So that was a big impact. You saw firms having to say no to files, and they weren't ready and prepared to do that. You saw clients going to other practices because firms were taking too long because their onboarding processes weren't slick. You saw a hard cost to firm around their additional software. So they hadn't budgeted for the fact that they need software to run this new process at their firm. And you also saw that the human effort now required was at cost to the firm too, because people were having to work extra hours. Maybe you had to hire staff. What we also saw in region was a market saturation of providers and products. You're probably seeing this now. I think I've spoke to a lot of you today already. You're looking at software already. You'll see just an absolute infiltration of software providers. You're probably getting tested by AML software every day of the week. We saw that a lot in New Zealand, and we saw a lot of compliance training program providers, and a lot of people that will draft compliance programs for you in a templated way. I think the main stat, which I don't know if you caught on the screen, but approximately 85% of law firms failed their first AML audit in New Zealand. So that, I think, is a really key takeaway. And I think that whole story is around the lesson we can learn. Be prepared. We have time now. You've seen this slide for a little while now, so I won't spend too much time on it. But I would just want to highlight the timeline down the bottom. 1 January 25, done. 31 March 2026. This is your mandatory enrolment date with AUSTRAC. If you have not done this and you take one thing away today, it is go and register. You can register now. Do not wait till 31 March 2026. Do not wait till 2026. You can register now. Put little brackets there. It's 283 business days away. So you might feel like you've got time, but it sneaks up. The most important date is the red date, or the pink date. I'm having a girl, so I'm going to call it pink date. 1 July 2026. This is your date when all your new processes need to be live. So this is your mandatory compliance deadline. I'm calling this your AML Go Live, but you don't want to wait to go live. You want to have everything prepared and rolled out by then. So you have a lot of time now. 350 business days, in fact, from today. I had Copilot, you'll be happy to know, do that calculation. 70 weeks, that might seem like a lot of time, but I want you all just to think about what you have in your pipe of work now, this year. What have you committed to the business to do? What projects are you going to deliver? How are you going to fit this in as well? We wouldn't be the legal industry if we didn't throw a few more acronyms into the mix. So we love acronyms in law, and there are going to be a lot more coming your way if you're not already familiar with them. I spoke to a few people in the room, and they rattled off KYC, KYB, CDD, which is great. We have people that are, there are firms that are across this. If you're not yet familiar with these acronyms, this is not all of them. There are plenty more, but these are some key ones. It's risky business, AML. Let's talk about it. I think if we're summarising AML, it's all about risk and managing risk, and what better, law firms or lawyers, that's what you do, right? Eliza, you manage risk, probably. When we're talking about AML, you're trying to manage your firm's exposure to the laundering of money and the financing of terrorism. Now, your appetite for risk is going to be different to every other firm. And that's going to get frustrating because you just want to know, what have I got to do? What's the cookie cutter solution? Unfortunately, there is none. Every firm is going to be different because they're going to manage their risk a little differently. They're going to manage the appetite that they have for risk, and your risk portfolio is going to look different than other firms. Even if you do family law and you do family law and this firm does family law, the clients that you have, the work that you do, where the money's coming from, could be different from this family law firm. So the risk there is different. When you're looking at risk, I want you to be thinking about your risk considerations. So client locations, states, domestic, international, where are your clients? That geographical connection is going to play a really big part. You're representing a client in Russia. There's probably a little bit more risk there than if you're representing somebody that lives down the road from you. For me, I live in Queensland. You're going to look at the type of clients you have, the PEPs, the sanctions. You're going to look at the client complexity. So if you've got a client that's got, I think I talked about this with somebody else, if you've got a client that's got a number of businesses, a number of trusts, and they're the UBO of them all, that can be complex. Whereas if you've got maybe like a mum and dad shop, the complexity there may be a little different. So hopefully you're picking up on the difference between the risks. The services offered is going to be important too. You want to look at the different services that because they carry different risks. This is just an example that, I call this a speedometer. I don't know what you would call that, but I call that a speedometer. That's an example of, I guess, where the risk speed sits. So you've got the medium and the high risk. Conveyancing, poor old conveyancing, it always cops a blow. Conveyancing, property law, family law, they are more high risk matters, whereas opposed to you've got, environment, environmental law, employment law, maybe a little bit lower. So you need to have a look at the risk attached to the different services. Look at the complexity of the value of the transactions and also look at how you receive your funds. Does NOLA come in and pay for her will in cash? Where does NOLA get that cash from? Is it through EFT? Is it through international funds transfer? Bitcoin? I mean, you would actually be surprised. Wrapped around, I guess that's kind of the foundation of it all, wrapped around then are your legal obligations. So, you now have legal obligations to do a range of different things within your practice. Again, won't spend too much time here, but conduct due diligence, monitor transactions, report suspicious activities. Is that volume? Maintain records, is it all right? Yeah. And you need to appoint a CO or a compliance officer. I guess one of the key takeaways today is that you need a compliance program. So this is something that you're going to build within your practice. And again, unfortunately, it's going to be different to everybody else's. It's going to be the risk's going to be wrapped around it, and it's going to be tailored to your firm. So I like to think of the compliance program as like your rule book or your Bible, your AML Bible within the firm. What I love about the program is that it's firm-wide. It's not up to the individual. So there's not sort of some maybe, sorry, again, don't want to dig too much at lawyers, but, lawyer in the room that wants to do things a certain way. The program is going to govern how you do that. What I want you to remember too is that the compliance program, like I said with the journey, it's an evolving beast. So this is, again, not something you're going to draft next week and that's it, it's static. It is going to evolve and change over time. The legislation is going to continue changing. We're seeing in New Zealand even next year, the AML legislation is changing. So you're going to need to evolve your compliance program around that. What you'll also need to do with the compliance program is if things change in the business, I mean, in our business, things change all the time. So I suspect that's probably the same for you. Maybe you acquire another firm, a different practice area. You will need to update your compliance program and manage that risk accordingly. When you're looking at your compliance program, there'll be some standard inclusions. This is not all of them, I've just cherry-picked a few. Compliance officer, your NBI process, new business intake, another acronym. Software details, so what are you utilising for your software, your CDD processes, reporting, record keeping. So that's kind of going to be the crux of what's going to make up your compliance program. Now, maybe a raise of hands. Who has a compliance team or has a compliance officer allocated at their firm? HPX girls, yep. Bradley, put his hand up. Yep. Okay, so not a whole lot. If you're a registered entity, which you will be with AML, you must have a compliance officer at management level appointed who's going to be responsible for compliance. Who's going to fill this role? It's going to be, yes, you got it, different for every firm. So you might have somebody that's in a role now. So Penny, for example, I think I was talking to you before, that might be you. You might be lucky enough to score the compliance officer role, but that might be added on top of your existing role. Or the firm might deem that they need to create a brand new role and hire somebody dedicated to compliance officer. Or your firm might be large enough that you already have a compliance team. Regardless, you will need to have somebody appointed. So it's a great time for you to start thinking about what roles do we need to create. Budget time is here / coming, so you can build these roles into your budget. When firms ask me, how would I know if I need just Penny to take on the role, or how do I know if I need to hire a new role, or how do I know if I need a team? Realistically, the more transactions that you have, so maybe the more matter volume or the transactions that you have, the more visibility the person responsible for that is going to need to have over those transactions. If you've got heaps, there's no way they can do their day job as well. So they need to be dedicated to that. They need to have visibility of that across the business. We love records as law firms, right? So you get to do some extra record keeping. You need to think about where you're going to store those records. What's your retention requirements? Think about it like a trust account. You do need to retain records. There is an obligation. Don't ask me how long that is yet, but you will need to retain records. And it's important you do this because it's your evidence. So if you have a client that's being investigated for money laundering, you need proof that you've met your obligations, that you've done your checks and balances, and you've followed your compliance program and you've maintained those records, that you've done everything that you can. Important to note, all you need is a defensible position. So you need to be confident that you've got the evidence to support that you've done and met your legal obligations. You'll need software to do that. Yes, there's a few more things you need to do. Reporting, another thing we do like to do in law firms and businesses, but you will have extra reporting requirements. If you're not already doing these now, but there will be that annual audit reporting. Get across that. Like I said, 85% of New Zealand firms failed at first go. Obviously, they're still in practice, you know, but well, most of them. But it's important that you know what's required here. There'll also be a need for internal management reporting. So businesses are going to want to know, well, how many high-risk matters did we take on this month? How many low-risk ones? How many matters did we turn away because maybe our risk is sitting too high or the threshold's too high? Maybe we need to, review, and again, that compliance program ever evolving, right? So the internal management reporting is going to give you that insight. You're going to do other reporting too. The TTRs, in New Zealand we call them PTRs. You need to report any transaction that exceeds 10,000 Australian dollars. So there's a lot, you're probably picking up on the human effort required there. So there's a lot. The SARs, the suspicious activity reports. Now this is an interesting piece because everybody's going to be responsible in the firm for keeping an eye on what might look like unusual behaviour or activity around the transactions. They have an obligation to escalate that to the compliance officer, who then needs to take that to and report that to the to AUSTRAC. So that's a whole education piece, and I will cover that a little bit later. But what I want to highlight on this piece is you're not Crime Stoppers. You're not expected to be the police. I want you to remember that. You don't need to investigate, but again, you need the proof that you've met your obligations through that record keeping. Cool. When I was having a couple of conversations before the start of the presentation, people want to know about software. So luckily I can talk to you a little bit about it, and I can probably talk to you about it a lot when we have a bit more time. Firstly, when I have talked to firms who did know what AML was or is, they said, oh, we do that at the firm. We do that here already. I said, okay, what do you do? Oh, we get a copy of the driver's license and, put it on file, and, that's us. That's not what AML is anymore, unfortunately. And I want to highlight that that's a very, very, very small component of VOI, and AML isn't just about verification of identity. What you're probably picking up is that there are a range of different things that you're going to have to start doing, and the software is going to actually help you eliminate a lot of that. Well, eliminate's probably a bit harsh. Help you reduce that manual work. So software is going to help you to onboard faster, automate your risk monitoring, help with your record keeping, and also your reporting. So all those things I've just covered off there, software is going to help with that. You want to make sure that your AML software is integrating with your existing software. That's something we're very passionate about at Verlata, is making sure that your tech stack is integrated, and that again, you're reducing that human effort and that manual data load of having to enter it here and enter it here. There's some more risk that's added into the mix. Firms in New Zealand who didn't have good software put in place spent over a month doing their initial annual AML audit. Over a month. That is just time that none of us have. We've done a lot of work with firms in the ActionSep space, which is a cloud practice management system. In New Zealand, we have built a kind of a framework, I suppose, for how firms might want to capture data in their PMS around CDD and the contact record and the client record. So the screenshots here are just really to highlight just things that we can do. What you want is to have software that's configurable and customizable so that you can tweak and change, because what this looks like for one firm, we tweak and change it for another firm, because again, it's all about your own compliance program. Lots of firms want that data to be captured within the PMS because it's a central source of truth. Now, there's a whole other conversation about where you keep your records, remember? So are you keeping a lot of those records in your AML software, or are you actually bringing it into the PMS? It's totally up to you. But it is really helpful to have it all within here and to continue an update. What's nice for a lot of the firms that we're rolling out now at Verlata, so firms that we're onboarding onto the platform, is we're actually installing the bones of this into their system so that we can kind of turn it on when they need us to and help configure it. So just make sure you've got software that you can configure. Lots of firms want to report in the PMS too, so we can do some really great reporting. VOI software. This is different again, but you will need VOI software, and again, you want it to integrate with your core solution. So whether you want to capture the data within the PMS or have it feed back in, or maybe you want the data to feed from the PMS automatically into the VOI so that you can run that quickly and you don't have to manually transfer that data across. But you will need VOI software, so it's worth, I had a few logos on the screen before, it is worth having a look at them. It's probably all on those two. You can launch from here, which I quite like. So you can be on a client and you can launch and kind of run your VOI from there. Then you've got NBI software. So I was talking to a couple of ladies about this earlier. If you're thinking about overhauling your whole new business intake, have a look at Spinnaker. That is a great product that I call the umbrella approach. So this is what's going to help you do the entire thing. So onboarding, conflict checking, risk assessments, it's going to do your reporting, it integrates with VOI software as well, and it's going to run that whole new business intake, and it does have an integration into maybe the finance management system or the practice management system to actually on-charge automatically a lot of those costs to clients, to your clients. You'll need to get comfortable with that, but I will touch on that a bit later. All right, so I'm nearly at the end. Homework, what can you do right now? And again, a lot of you may already be doing this, but let's just summarise. I think I've got 6 points. Register with AusTrack, period, non-negotiable. What you can do immediately, if you haven't already, is understand your current state of play. What do your clients look like? What are your services? So remember, looking at those different risk level for services and having a look at your different clients and what they look like. Somebody actually said to me too, close a whole lot of files. That was something I don't have in the slide deck, but close a lot of matters off. And have a look at your active clients versus your non-active clients. So if you close off a lot of matters, when it's all mandated, you won't actually have to run CDD on them. So clean up, data hygiene. Have a look at your processes, document them. Who opens files? Who onboards clients? Who checks the client's details? Start working out what's happening now, and that will help you map what's going to look like in the future. You will need to appoint a compliance officer. Number 4, haven't spent a lot of time on that, but this is pretty critical. You've got to educate your team, and that's just not the people in this room or people you work with. You have to educate absolutely everybody in your business. We work in the business of change management. We're doing projects all the time. This does not happen overnight and it cannot be rushed. The change needs to be led from the top down, and you need to make sure that they understand what their new roles and responsibilities are. Lawyers will say, I just need to start lawyering. I need to start working on the file. AML is now part of lawyering. So let's get people exposed and educated around that. There will be tension, there will be. So if you get on top of it early, you won't have any problems 1 July 26. The other piece is that you can start doing is communicating with your clients. Start entrenching that change now. The legislation is here. Start educating them as well. Legislation's it's changed. All firms are required to do this now. Start educating them around things like what information you're going to need from them, why they need to supply that information. So if I have I don't know, maybe Scott is he's been coming to our firm for years. He's like, I know you, why do I need to provide this? And it's like, well, Scott, the legislation has changed and this is what the information that I now need from you in order to start working on the file. Charge your clients. You can on-charge your AML fees to your clients. This is done in a range of different ways. New Zealand, I would say 90% of them now charge their clients. So there'll be like an onboarding fee or a matter opening fee. You may already be doing this now in the practice. They took too long to do that, so there was a lot of extra costs incurred. And I would say on average it's about $50 to $150 per matter, depending on how many checks, just to give you a yardstick. So that's a big piece for firms. A lot of people will push back on that, but I do want you to really explore that as a possibility because it will help with just the whole change. And people do. Select software, and we've got that one, that's the most important one. Have your demos, I think for what I've picked up on is the software providers know what they're talking about because they have to demonstrate the software. So they know why they've got the software and how it works. Learn from them, have the demos, pick their brains. You can select your software now, you can implement it now. You've only got 350 days until you really need to be live and launched on that thing. And build it into your budget. I think that's really important too. All right, I think I've probably gone over. I'm sorry, Carla, you're in the room, sorry. I just wanted to, say, helps on this way. We've got an ebook. You will see the little cards on the screen. We do have a decoding AML ebook if you want some light reading with a glass of wine on a Friday night. Please have one for me, because I certainly don't have one. But I just wanted to say that there's a few knowledge learners on here too. So if you're not following these, knowledge leaders, if you're not following them on LinkedIn, do that. I've seen some really great information from there. Don't struggle alone. Talk to each other, share information. With Jamie Lynch, Luke Raven, Monique Batterham, and Jeremy Moller. So that's the end of my presentation.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Well done. Thank you.
And just